say Philipp is a longtime friend of DLD, and I'm very happy that you came back on our stage.
Steffi, thank you so much for having us. It's a special day for Steffi, I know that, because DLD celebrates 20 years, right?
Yes, 20 years.
And it's my distinct pleasure to be here today at DLD, and especially also with Sebastian Dettmers, who is the great CEO of Stepstone. Not only do we have a jubilee today for Steffi, but also it's a special moment for the two of us, because it is the first time that we appear in public after we announced that we split Axel Springer in two, and that KKR from now on is the majority owner of Stepstone. So it is a moment now for explaining what the hell are we doing, why is it a great company, and why we're so excited about this. So, and I promise Steffi we do a little bit of this. But before we go in the micro, a lot of people have asked the question, as Steffi has, why are you even here? Why do you go through the trouble of coming to Munich? Is investing in Germany not the last priority that KKR now has? Nobody in America looks up to Germany right now. Germany has all these problems. And why is there a future for Germany and Europe? Maybe we start a little bit on the macro before we go in the micro. What's your view on Germany? You should talk about Stepstone a little bit, what it is and why it's a microcosm of Germany.
Yeah, first, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Super glad to be here. Great evolution of DLD. Looking back 20 years, Germany was called the sick man of Europe, and we are the sick man of Europe again. So it seems to be a cycle. But in between that, obviously, there were also pretty good times. And we'll speak about good times and why there will be good times again. But I think we have serious issues. One, productivity. Productivity is right now at the level of 2019, which means 5 years essentially of stagnation, 6 years of no increase of living standards. And I think it's fair to say that no one in this room, and probably not even your parents, have ever witnessed a phase of stagnation in this country for such a long time. So that's productivity. And then you have a second thing, and that is demography. And I find it fascinating that we do not speak way more about demography and the fact that the world population, which was growing for so long, I was born in 1979 when we were 4.4 billion people on the planet. We have surpassed 8 billion. But in my lifetime, I will witness that the world population will start to decline, and it has already started to decline here across Europe.
Sebastian, there's a lot of things that we disagree with Elon Musk with, but that's one that he will violently agree with. He considers that to be the most important issue of the Western world. Yeah?
It is. All economic models that our thinking are based on a growing working population in particular. So if you take those two factors, stagnating productivity, declining workforce, declining population, then the result is recession, not just for 1-2 years, but for a very long time. But I truly believe that this is not the end of economic growth, but that crises are always a catalyst, an important catalyst for innovation and for transformation.
So Henry Kravis says, never waste a good crisis. And if not now, when? What are some of the impulses for change that we should talk about Stepstone a little bit? I mean, you've come from being a tiny startup to being the largest part of Axel Springer now, through technology investments, through good product development, etc. Talk a little bit about what you did at the company and why you see growth ahead for us.
Yeah. So I joined the business already 13 years ago, a long time ago. And back then, Stepstone existed for a while, but actually no one was really interested in jobs and demography and all these topics. I was trying to talk about these topics, but nobody would listen. So they wouldn't have invited me to a stage like that. And things have significantly changed. So we grew from a relatively small business, 100 million in revenues, tenfold. We now make roughly 1 billion. We have 3,500 people, operate in 30 country markets. And essentially what we do is we help businesses to recruit talent. And Germany is one of our key markets. We moved to the US. We now work with the largest US firms, the UPS, the Walmarts, more than 1 million employees, super interesting. Homeland Security, US Navy, the largest healthcare companies, to help them essentially to hire people in the United States, but also abroad. And you know, as desperate as we can get about demography, obviously we're super excited because if there's one challenge that businesses will have in the future, it's attracting talent. And we think we already feel that labor markets get under pressure, but obviously this has just started. Germany, in the next 10 years alone, will net lose 5 million workers. Next 10 years, 5 million workers, which is more than 10%. So if you want to grow a business, the key question that you ask yourself now is, how do I grow with less people? The answer for us was not just to be a jobs platform, but to very significantly invest into AI, not just as a buzzword, not just investing into matchmaking algorithms and understanding people better, but particularly in automating how we work, how we do our job, how we serve our 140,000 clients, again, some of the largest employers in the world and the small cafe around the corner, and how we serve users. So it is not just a feature, it's not just something that will delight users or customers, it's an imperative if you want to succeed in a world where you have less workers.
So I use Stepstone as an example. When you ask the question, is KKR interested in investing in Europe and in Germany, the answer is yes. We see great potential to team up with innovative companies like this. I give another example. Have you ever, when you think about Bremen, you probably think still of shipyards. Well, people do not always realize that it has a very flourishing space and aerospace ecosystem now. We bought a 30% stake in a company called OHB, which also is a major investor in Rocket Factory Augsburg, so a rocket launcher company, and the leading supplier of Germany's surveillance satellites. So a real leading player in Germany. Who would have thought that an American large investor thinks that in a small town like Bremen, through a partnership, there's a lot of potential. And I think if you look at meta themes, of course, aging society, you write a lot about this, and the fact that, bring people into jobs, etc., is a massive theme. We have a war in this continent. With Ukraine, we have seen startups like Helsing, who play an incredibly important role. So we now know whatever happens in the next 5 years, the whole defense and aerospace ecosystem and space ecosystem will play a larger role. So I tend to agree with Warren Buffett that when there is too much exuberance and too much positivity, there's only one way, which is down. The opposite is true too. Right now, the pessimism that we see here does not really at all reflect the substance that we have in this country. And let's just put politics to one side. What is for sure still a stronghold here, if you think about Europe as a whole, has 50% of all the family companies in the world. So you have this ecosystem that we call the Mittelstand here, where many face this kind of generational transition that you describe, and talent. And they also have a significant technological disruption to deal with, a disruption in geopolitics, in supply chains. And we see an unprecedented openness, really, of that ecosystem to team with large institutional investors like ours to help them with that change. So I probably would say you will be surprised in the next 2 or 3 years how much interest you will see from international capital to actually come to Germany and help on the micro level to fix some of these problems.
Yeah, and Philipp, I think that is also what we are seeing, that crises are times when transformation is facilitated. Essentially what should happen in a crisis is that unproductive companies just disappear. Unproductive jobs just disappear. We have evolved somehow a tendency to protect all that, to protect unproductive work through furlough schemes, to protect unproductive companies through subsidies, and we do not do the opposite, and that is investing into innovation. But it's so important. If we think of the Industrial Revolution, it started not in France, where you could have expected it, but it started in the UK. Why? Because they're lacking people after a war with France. But they had the technology, or at least the knowledge about technology, to benefit from that. Germany suffered from a big brain drain in the 19th century. But then all these great companies were founded, like Siemens, Bosch, and so on and so forth. So I believe we need to let transformation happen. In the big financial crisis, Arcandor, which was Karstadt, disappeared. But now we have Zalando with 16,000 employees. So something great has happened. And I think this transformation, this upskilling, this upgrading of labor, and essentially the upgrading of productivity and in income and living standards is what we need to focus on right now. I think what we're lacking is not only innovation, entrepreneurship, also investment.
Yeah, I think Mario Draghi talked about it. So I make a comment now about Europe and not only Germany. If you compare us as a region to China and to the United States of America, we need large-scale investments. There's no doubt. We in Germany have one big strength and one advantage, if you think about it, relative to anybody else, including the US. Our debt to GDP is only 60%. So there are reserves. That means that Europe structurally is actually in a better shape than highly indebted regions of the world who are more constrained. What we now need, however, before that capital can be put to good use and to maximum impact, is actually reforms on the micro level. Because otherwise, you make the mistake that our French neighbors have made. In fact, I mean, Macron has done a fantastic job since 2017, but unfortunately, some of these reforms now seem to not have created real job growth. And you see now stuck with a deficit and debt situation, which constrains them in a very major way. So together, let's put the reform in. You know, a lot of people laugh about the idea of DOGE and doing away with excessive regulation and bureaucracy in the US. But it shows us that, you know, some people think radical. Even if we're not that radical, we certainly have to go in that direction. We don't need government to tell us where to invest and how to invest. We need the market to do that for us. And we need stable, frameworks to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's almost culturally embedded that these investments are bad and that we somehow rely on state investments to happen. There's this interesting research from last year which revealed that actually from governmental R&D spending, Europe is on par with the United States. We can still question in which directions we are investing. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing is private investment into research and development. And there we are only roughly half of what US private companies are spending. And even worse, 50% of European R&D spends go into the automotive sector and automotive parts. So, which essentially is an industry of the 20th century, while in the United States, 80% of the investment go into software, into hardware, into bioscience and pharmaceuticals. So what we all would consider as high tech. And I think this is what needs to happen. And I think this relates not only to, okay, where investors like you invest their money, but also how do we structure our pension scheme? How do we not only create a sustainable pension scheme, a sustainable healthcare scheme, but also use that to facilitate innovation? And I'm always impressed when I come to Bavaria. There's great new startups evolving. Aerospace is a big thing, but it's underinvested. And Klaus Hommels will certainly talk about that in a second. It doesn't take that much when we think of the Zeitenwende and the Doppelwumms, so that is quotes from Olaf Scholz. It doesn't take much to get Europe, to get particularly Germany into space, to support other industries with innovation. But we don't do that. And instead, we invest a lot into subsidizing, again, old-fashioned industries.
Just to add to your point, you see the positive when Josef Aschbacher, who runs the European Space Agency, decided it's not anymore state-mandated innovation, but we let the market decide. And I actually allow competition between startups, ESA, Rocket Factory Outlook, and others, or exploration company for capsules, to show to me who is the better solution. You suddenly see innovation flourishing in Europe. The same, think about what happened during COVID. We should really, as Europeans and Germans, take pride in that. It is BioNTech, a little startup in Mainz, actually founded by migrants, that saved the world. And you see the magic that happens when you have private capital, the Strüngmanns investing in it, combining with suddenly a crisis situation where people do away with unnecessary regulation and a lot of the red tape that actually prevents that kind of speed of innovation. So we have already two examples. We have space and we have pharmaceuticals, to your point, in addition to automotive and machinery that could drive Germany forward. And for sure, because of these two examples, international capital wants to invest. I mean, Klaus will talk about it. We are just the warm-up act for him. But Helsing is a fantastic example of that success story.
I think there's many things where I think even this current situation will drive innovation. If we think about industry automation, we will face the demographic shift faster than other countries. So we had this dip of birth rates in the 1970s earlier than any other European or North American country. So we will suffer first. That means that German businesses will have an incentive to invest into labor automation earlier than other companies. Let's make it happen. And if letting it happen, if we mean that serious, it also means that when companies like Volkswagen announce that they want to cut jobs, it is a good thing because it means they're becoming more productive. Probably for too long time, we let it happen that they succeed, many companies succeed outside Germany, but we have become a bit inefficient. You know who the biggest car export nation was in 1950? It has been the UK. They produced the first passenger jet, the first nuclear plant, have been the most innovative automotive country for a long time.
Our friends in Wolfsburg who listen to this, they might get a bit scared, yeah?
Yeah, but they forgot to invest into innovation. They forgot to become innovative. Germany then took their place. Japan took their place. Now we might say the US took their place. It's all about productivity and innovation. And again, I think the demographic pressure that we're facing will do good to our country. We just need to invest into the right place. So where are you investing right now?
Well, listen, KKR's #1 priority worldwide to invest right now. You will laugh at that. Guess what it is? You will not guess. It's Japan. Who would have thought that? Because for the first time in many, many years, that country has decided we actually need structural reforms. We have great companies, great innovation, but we actually are serious about doing away with unnecessary red tape, bureaucracy, and holding structures. I would say Germany has a significant chance to be the next big priority. We need leadership. I think the expectations are so low right now. Think about Warren Buffett. You want to go in when everybody is doing the opposite. So as long as we get some spark of leadership in the next 6 to 12 months, and the spark of leadership we need is a clear outcome politically of the elections, have a clear direction of reforms, and unleash the creativity of this room, of the entrepreneurs, of the family companies. And investment just wants to see that there is a way forward and a determination.
Is optimism important?
Absolutely. That's the one thing that Germans, now, you can say, if Germans are not afraid, nothing will ever change. Maybe. But quite frankly, is enough fear now. Let's move on from it and let's change things. And I just say this to my French friends. The problem with optimism without substance is what we now see. They did a fantastic job since 2017, but unfortunately, we have now arrived at a crossroad where we also need some substance. Another word of optimism is, if you think about the Euro crisis, what did we not all think about Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain? Yeah? Basket cases will never make it. I'm looking here to my left. Leading German newspapers, were very critical. They are now the growth engine of Europe. The so-called PIGS countries have outstripped France and Germany by a factor of 3 times. Now, why don't we swallow our own medicine? If that was the medicine that we in the Euro crisis told these countries to get better, and they now are, why don't we swallow the own medicine? If we go in that direction, the future is bright, and certainly capital will follow.
Absolutely. And I think if we look into our business, but frankly, all businesses we work with, I see already one thing has changed, and I see that very optimistic. If we go back 2 years, and when we talked about work, we mostly talked about work-life balance. We talked about 4 days working week. We talked a lot about, and I do not want to get very emotional here, remote work and remote teams. But we haven't talked about hard work. We haven't talked about the joy of solving complex challenges, of mastering a crisis like that.
Which is actually what Germans are best at, if you think about it. Hard engineering problems.
And we start talking about that again. What I realize is people want to solve complex problems. They want to face challenges. No one wants to have this pessimism out there, but you want to do hard work. And I think it's important that we also, like Greece does now, speak about hard work, speak about productivity, speak about upgrading labor, speaking about letting go old industries, but we need to start investing into new industries. Super important for Germany.
So I sum it up. Happy birthday, DLD. Steffi, great job. You have been an inspiration for 20 years. We look forward to the next 20 years. Germany needs you. The future is bright for Germany as long as we now turn fear and criticism into reform and into forward-looking change. And we will play our part. Thank you.